all your thoughts out real quick. See what you guys
Hello, everyone. If I could have you quiet down, we're going to start the session now. So please stop talking. Thank you.
All right, let's see. Am I on? Good? Can you hear me? That'd be a no.
I think they
Okay.
do.
Yes, now? Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, and thank you to everybody for joining us here today. I am Heidi Gantwerk, and I have the privilege of serving as the president and CEO of Jewish Federation of San Diego.
All right.
They like to sit in the front row. I've been thinking a little bit about Senator Fetterman and what he said today, that he can't imagine how exhausting it must be to be a part of our community right now. And we're here to talk about a source of that exhaustion. But in spite of the conversation we're about to say today, we're going to have, I wanted to offer a counter to that view. And I wanted to say that it's an honor of a lifetime to serve in this role, and that being loudly and proudly Jewish strengthens me and enriches every aspect of my life. And I have had some of the most joyful experiences of my life in the last 2 years.
Amen.
So for nearly 90 years, our Jewish Federation stood on 3 pillars: caring for Jews in need, strengthening Jewish community and identity, and fostering dynamic connections with Israel and Jews overseas. Recently, we've had to add a 4th pillar: ensuring a safe and resilient community. And it takes up a tremendous amount of time and resources. I would much rather devote my energy and my precious dollars to cultivating Jewish joy and belonging, but the world has forced our hand, and we are all actively engaging in responding to and addressing the very real and the very frightening anti-Semitism coming at us from all directions. So as a leader who has focused throughout my career on building coalitions and partnerships across some very thorny issues across North America, I have found building trust and collaboration in my own city around this most important challenge, one where we would really benefit, as we heard this morning, from some increased coordination, to be one of the most vexing challenges I have faced. Trust is low, and turf wars are rampant. Newly formed grassroots organizations, locally focused legacy agencies, and nationally driven organizations jockey for space and funding, and sometimes battle over approach. I try every day to remind myself when the angry emails and phone calls come in, criticizing what we did or what we didn't do, or what we said or what we didn't say, that many people today are coming from a place of fear. And fear does not always lend itself to thoughtful collaboration. But these divides are doing us no favors. In Pirkei Avot, we are all taught, Al tifrosh min hatzibur, do not separate yourself from the community. And over again, we tell ourselves, Kol Yisrael aravim ze bazeh, right? We're all for the community. I fear on this issue, we could use a little reminding of those 2 sayings. Just last week, I spent hours trying to hold a fragile coalition together in my own community as deep divides over strategy and who owns which lane led to people going to their corners and to accusations and mistrust. And that's just inside the Jewish community. Meanwhile, major national institutions like the NEA, Washington think tanks, prominent elected officials, and the FBI have become real sources of tension. Members of Congress and other national leaders have used liberally the word genocide, and anti-Semitic memes are being shared on the regular by celebrities and talk show hosts and pretty much anyone with a TikTok account. Although we've done some great work on that. These issues are playing out every single day in local communities, including ours in San Diego, and also very publicly on a national stage. So these questions: what issues should we be focusing on? What sectors should we target? What strategies are most effective? And who should lead when? When do we speak up? And when do we stay quiet? Where can we make an impact? And when are we just adding to the noise? So today, we have the opportunity to hear from two leaders who, before and exponentially more so after October 7th, have found themselves right in the eye of the storm, and to extend that metaphor, are steering some pretty big and highly scrutinized ships in that storm. Neither needs much introduction to this crowd. It is my pleasure to have this conversation with Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League, and of course JFNA's own Eric Fingerhut. Both have, of course, had long and storied careers before taking on these roles, but I think we'd all rather hear from them than about them, so let's jump in. So let's just start generally about the last 2 years. How has the last 2 years from the war in Israel, obviously the surge in anti-Semitism here at home, reshaped, Jonathan, I'll start with you, your focus and your priorities? Talk to us a little about the arc of the last 2 years for you.
So thank you very much. First of all, I'll just say how much I appreciate being on this stage and what a gift it is for me as a CEO of ADL to be a speaker at the JFNA General Assembly. So I want to say that loud and clear because I think sometimes there is, and it was sort of explicit in your kind of presentation, Heidi, that, all the Jewish groups are fighting, whatever. We have never been more coordinated. We have never been more synced. None of us can do this alone. And I would argue, ADL has, let's say, 30 some odd offices between full offices and satellite offices around the country. On the ground, in the communities where we work, we have no better partner than Jewish federations. I am so proud of the work we do together. Let's say up front.
Great.
So what's changed since October the 7th? Everything. Everything has changed. And I mean everything. It's changed not only because the anti-Semitism is worse than it was before, but that was already on the increase. Right, over the last decade, we've seen the number of anti-Semitic incidents that ADL tracks, and ADL has been tracking acts of harassment, vandalism, and violence against our community literally since the 1970s. And the number of incidents are up over the last decade, 1,000%. These are the highest numbers we've ever tracked. And every year is worse than the prior year. In 5 out of the last 6 years, we've broken a record. We've been tracking anti-Semitic attitudes in America since the 1960s. And the percent of Americans with intense anti-Jewish attitudes, it's the highest we've seen since the 1960s. Nearly a quarter of Americans have elevated anti-Semitic attitudes. And my God, if you look at, the podcast charts, if you listen to Hassan Piker over here, or Tucker Carlson over here, or Mehdi Hassan over here, or Candace Owens over here, you can see that anti-Semitism sells. These people are monetizing bigotry directed against us. Now, look, ADL is the oldest anti-hate organization in the US. We were founded in 1913 with this mission to, quote, stop the defamation of the Jewish people and secure justice and fair treatment to all. Okay, so sometimes that's referred to as our dual mission. And that's what we have done for the last 112 some odd years. We have fought for Jews, and we have fought for our civil rights and for everyone's civil rights. We marched in the 50s for civil rights. We fought in the 70s for the Equal Rights Amendment. We pushed in the 90s for LGBTQ equality. And I am proud of all those fights. But what's become crystal clear in a world where anti-Jewish incidents are literally up 10x, in this moment, I refer to it as an oxygen mask moment. So when anti-Semitism was in recession, we could fight for everyone, and we are still committed to that fight. But in this moment, I'm focused less on the what we do and more on the why we do it. Why were we created? Why does ADL exist? We have one core purpose, and it's not dual. It's not integrated. It is singular. ADL exists to protect the Jewish people. And so what we have done since 10/7, without apology, and anyone who wants me to apologize, you can get in line. We are focused singularly and strategically on protecting the Jewish people. That means in the short term, we have amped up our threat monitoring. We are tracking everything from LLMs to Wikipedia to video games to podcasts. You know, is that me?
You leaned on your phone.
Yeah, really. We're focused on monitoring everything right now because we have no choice. The world has changed and so must we. We are focused on tighter coordination, as I mentioned at the top, with Jewish Federation. Eric and I co-chair something called the Jewish National Security Council. We sit with SCAN, super important, CSS, CSI, the OU, all the different groups to make sure on the ground, in the shuls and the schools, that we are working together to make sure people are safe. And I've just never been more crucial. So in the short term, right here and right now, we are protecting our institutions, we are coordinating with our institutions, and we are also amassing the support that we need. Just a few weeks ago, ADL announced the creation of the Legal Action Network. We have pulled together more than 40 of the top law firms in America. We've assembled an army of more than 40,000 lawyers who are working with us now pro bono. So when incidents get reported to us, if we can identify there's a litigation opportunity, you better believe we're going to pursue it with literally the best litigators in America. So I mean, I would say that whether it's, and by the way, that is enabled by generative AI. We have brought in artificial intelligence into ADL in ways we never would have imagined. We're using analytic AI to monitor threats, to disrupt extremists, to work with law enforcement. We give thousands of tips of actionable intelligence every year to protect all of you and the places where you worship and the places where you work. So we are using technology, and we're using partnerships. I can talk about what we're doing in the long run as well, Heidi, to sort of transform the culture. But you should be asking your federation, you should be asking other Jewish groups that you support, like, how are you innovating after 10/7? What are you doing differently? All of us need to look in that mirror. All of us need to be doing things differently. Like, if we don't, like, I don't know what we're doing here. So we've tried to do that. It's still a work in progress, but we are singularly focused, again, on keeping our community safe.
Thank you. And Eric, to you, the ARC, I mean, obviously, we know what's happening with Israel.
First of all, Jonathan, welcome. We're really thrilled to have you here and honored to have you here. And I want to just echo for this really terrific audience that what Jonathan said about our collaboration and cooperation really is true. It's never been closer. We work together all the time. You mentioned a couple of the ways that we're working closely together. But it's not just the two of us. Our colleague William Daroff is here, who's the head of the Conference of Presidents. I know Ted Deutsch was here last night for the terrific AJC reception. And if Elliot's not in the room right now, from AIPAC, and Hillel was here. We're all working closely together, the movements. So please, it doesn't mean we get it all right, and it doesn't mean we always agree on everything. But this idea that somehow we're not working together, I really want to join Jonathan in trying to disabuse you. Look, I think since we got to have a little bit of fun here, I'm going to agree and disagree in part. I'm going to agree that there are some areas of real innovation that are needed for the federation system as I look back on these last 2 years. Look, I would say that right after October 7th, we could have predicted, and we did predict, two of the areas where anti-Semitism was going to grow. We knew the media was going to be a problem. Right? Literally right after October 7th, we were taking bets almost on when, we knew, like, for the first week, the stories where Israel was under attack and the terrible losses that were suffered that day. And it was really only a matter of days, we knew, before the stories would turn to Israel was, overreacting, and why is Israel doing this, and it was Israel's fault. And sure enough, that happened. And we actually organized ourselves into something we called the 10/7 Project, which was ADL and Jewish Federations of North America, Conference of Presidents, AJC, and AIPAC. We raised some money. We really tried to focus on the DC area media, the influencers. And frankly, it was really hard, right? It was really hard to try to change that that narrative, but we saw the media coming. The other area that was pretty obvious was the university sector. Of course, I had been at Hillel, and my colleagues who were at Hillel know that we'd already been dealing with the BDS resolutions and all that for a couple of years. So it wasn't a big shock that that campuses were a place where this, the anti-Israel, the pro-Hamas stuff would breed. Probably the strategies came as a surprise, the encampments, and but the fact that campuses were a hotbed of this wasn't a big surprise. But the rest of the areas in which anti-Semitism has seeped in, and you weren't here this morning, I don't think, Jonathan, but we had a panel discussion this morning about culture in the arts, and we had about in the faith communities, and also we did talk about media. But I saw there was a featured session on in the caring professions, medicine and social work, and we could go on and on. Really, almost every sector of society has now been impacted by this. So we simply have to broaden the areas in which we're working, which means we also have to increase our capabilities and our expansiveness. And K-12, we had a session on K-12 this morning. I hope we'll talk more about that, because I think, frankly, the issues with the NEA are one of the biggest, most serious problems that we have, because they operate. I know they love you, but they look. It's a problem because. Think about this. How many people even knew who their school board was before the last 6 months, right? Who was on your list? Some people don't even know what school district they're in, let alone who the school board is. So it's so decentralized, yet there's this one organization that's basically in every district without you really seeing it, presenting curriculum. And by the way, there's two major national teachers unions. I know I'm getting off track, but there's a point here. There's two major national teachers unions, NEA and AFT. AFT is largely the large urban districts, so like New York, Chicago, inner city, Cleveland. And then NEA is largely the suburbs, right? So of course, New York, AFT is a big factor because many people are in the city. But in most of our communities, it's the suburban school districts where our children are, and they're being affected. So we really have to do that. We have to attack all of these areas. So that's the innovation. I agree with Jonathan. The part I want to say that I think for the federation system at least, is not so much innovation as much as it is we just have to double down and frankly rebuild in some places the capability. We have always been the lead on civic engagement. When when an incident happens at a community, the call comes to the federation exec or to the federation board chair or maybe to the CRC director. And historically, think about the Lester Crowns and Max Fishers and of the world who were the Mort Mandel. These people were not just Jewish community leaders; they were the ultimate civic leaders, and therefore they could command the attention of the civil society in the communities in which they live and ensure that this stuff didn't seep in. And we have to rebuild that level of integration into the civic life of our communities. And so to me, that's a little bit of a going back to a tradition that I think we need to recapture.
Thank you. So I appreciate the coordination happening at the national level, and sometimes that becomes more of a struggle at the local level, and I love the idea of that trickling down and working with these national organizations to help us where there is, more turf, I think, going on, and so I appreciate all of that work. Both of your organizations, and all of us locally also, face a lot of pressure to speak out in moments of crisis, to make statements. People call upon us all the time to do that. And I want to talk about a recent incident, because we've been talking about it a lot at this, not an incident so much as an election. And I want to talk a little bit about the election of Mamdani in New York, and the choices before and after, and what people decided to say and do. In both of your organizations, you took a different path, and where you are now. And so I wonder, Eric, maybe you can start with how Federation responded, and then Jonathan, before and after you as well.
I want to hear what Jonathan says. We're obviously in a different situation, and that is that with respect to local elective offices, we follow at the Jewish Federations of North America, we follow the lead of our local federations who are who should make the decisions about the response. And we have 1,000% confidence in how UJA Federation of New York is handling that situation. And we know that they are prepared for anything that's happening. And I would not be the expert to be able to describe their entire strategy to you, but I can tell you that if Eric Goldstein's here or Hindi Pupko's here in the room, you should talk to them. They are really organized around what's happening in the city of New York. The challenge for us, I think, on the Mamdani situation is that it's not isolated to New York. Right, so one of the issues, when we end up in issues about statements, because that was sort of the premise of your question too, one of the challenges is that when a single federation does something in a community, which may make sense in that community, it has repercussions for other federations. And so all the rest of us are going to get a call saying, well, are you going to do this too? Or do you agree with this? Or what does that say? So all of us have to be aware that while we have a primary responsibility to our community, that what we say and do has impact in other places. And look, we already have the election of the mayor in Seattle. Right? We already have, other candidates running in Michigan and other places. Also this morning, you missed it, Jonathan, but we had a conversation about the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, which the information we received today was this is an intense movement that is spreading out across America into many of our communities. So for us, we've got to figure out how to address this on a national level. And of course, to the extent that the mayor of the city of New York, which is the biggest city and represents the biggest Jewish community, is a spokesperson for a movement. Look, AOC campaigns in other cities and traverses the country. So that's where I think we're going to have to get involved as that occurs.
Thanks. Jonathan.
Deep breath. Look, there's so much of what Eric said that I agree with. And I want to just amend something I said before. So the ADL is focused right now like a laser beam, like a Jewish space laser beam, if you will, on protecting the Jewish people and fighting literally the threats at our doorstep because they're real. Again, an order of magnitude the likes of which we've never seen before. But that doesn't mean we don't believe deeply in it or not committed to other communities. I want to make sure I don't miscommunicate here. I am proud of the work that we've done with other communities, again, throughout our existence, and we will continue to do that. It's just in this oxygen mask moment, we have to prioritize. Now that being said, the issues in New York are quite stark. Everyone knows probably in this room that New York is the city with the largest Jewish population of any, not just in America, but around the world. Literally. And if you don't know, New York State had the highest number of anti-Semitic incidents last year. New York City was the locus of that. So we have been very clear all along, and we will continue to be, that our focus is on fighting anti-Jewish hate. Whether that shows up and dresses up as like America First, or it shows up, dress up as anti-Zionism. When we see anti-Semitism, I don't care if it comes from the left or the right. I don't care who is saying it. We're going to call it out every single time. And by the way, if you look at right-wing media, they say ADL is a woke, Obama, something or other organization. And if you read left-wing media, they say ADL is a MAGA apologist, pro-Trump organization. Our job at ADL is called balls and strikes. Same strike zone. No matter if the person standing at the plate is wearing a red jersey or a blue jersey. We're going to call it out every time. And we've got all the bruises and scars to show for it. Right? Now, with that being said, the notion of electing a mayor with this person's track record absolutely got our attention. So I don't really care where this mayor prays. I don't care how he dresses. I don't care what party he belongs to. What I care about is the fact that he has a long track record of being openly anti-Zionist, of saying things, and now promising policies that would discriminate against us as Jews, that would make it difficult for us to loudly and proudly be Zionist, comfortable Jews. He apologized, if you will, for what was happening on these college campuses. There wasn't free speech. It's not free speech when you harass Jewish students going to pray at a Hillel or going to a Shabbat dinner. I'm sorry. That's something very different. And so our concern with this particular mayor, again, stems from what he has said and what he has promised to do. Whether it's bringing BDS to City Hall, whether it's changing the way he polices in local communities, for a community that, again, faces acts of vandalism and violence at our synagogues, in the spaces where we live. Like, that concerns me. So we have said very clearly we're going to monitor, we're going to track, and we are not going to stop. And I know that may make some people uncomfortable. Sorry. Really? I'm sorry. But maybe it's not us, it's you. Because I know when I wake up in the morning to the time I put my head on the pillow at night, the only thing I'm thinking about is how do I protect the Jewish people? And shining a big, bright spotlight on this person, and again, just calling out, paying attention to who they appointed roles, the programs they would introduce, and the policies they would implement, I think that is ADL doing its job. Now, that doesn't preclude us from paying attention to what's happening at the federal government or in other governments, and we will continue to do that. But we are going to, again, make sure we're doing everything we can to protect the Jewish community of New York. Last point, in case you have any doubts, we are lockstep with the UJA. So we are coordinating with them every single day because we need one another. You know, there's no silver bullet. There's no single group has a monopoly on this. So I am proud that we work with UJA. We will continue to work with UJA to get it right in New York, as we do with other federations, to get it right across the country.
Great, thank you. Both of your organizations, we touched on this a little bit earlier with the teachers' unions, the FBI. There are other sort of national organizations where relationships have changed over the last few years. So how do you decide, or how do you know when to engage when these things come up, when to sort of challenge directly, and how do you maintain trust with these partners and with the Jewish community in these situations? It's been very different over the last few years and the last few months in particular.
Well, I'll start. So I think a lot about what Bill Belichick used to say, New England Patriots. He used to say, do your job. And that's what I think we're doing at ADL. So look, we may be criticized by folks in power or folks outside of power. We may be criticized by partisans who want us to go this way or that way. We just try to keep our heads down and do the work. And I think if you can recognize that, again, there's a higher calling here, and we're playing a longer game than a particular election cycle, or even shorter a particular news cycle, or even shorter a particular meme cycle, you just focus on the long term and serving the community. I think that ultimately serves you well.
So I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, so Bill Belichick wasn't so great when he was in Cleveland. But look, I actually, going back to my first answer to Heidi's first question, the challenges that are facing our communities and each of us in our own communities, you in San Diego and I look around the room, are so vast. There's so many. You've got to prioritize. You have to prioritize. And by the way, some of these folks are doing it just to get attention, and giving them more attention is the wrong decision. Yeah. So what we have to do is to figure out where does it really matter. The reason I went on the rant about the NEA, a few minutes ago is I think that really matters. I think that they are a not so well known to local community, but invidious, influence in the communities that are affecting our children, and that the more light we can shine on that, and the more that we challenge it, the more effective you're all going to be able to be in the communities, addressing your own local school boards and the high school principals and all of that. So I think that one's a really, really important issue. Organization to challenge. I think you mentioned the FBI, and I'd Jonathan, I know, had some issues with the FBI, or they had with ADL, and so he can address those issues. But look, Jonathan talked about how we work together on security, And we had a session today to acknowledge all of the investment everybody is making in the physical security of the communities. And at the same time, we depend on law enforcement, and not just local law enforcement. We depend on the FBI. They are our national law enforcement entity. And as the threats have gone up, they have to increase their vigilance and, frankly, their resources. We developed together after the terrible, terrible shooting at the Washington Capitol Museum that resulted in the death of Sarah Milgram and Yoram Lashinsky of blessed memory. We all got together and said, we have to have an agenda with the federal government around security. We developed a 6-point agenda. The one you know all about, which is the nonprofit security grant program, which needs to be funded fully at $1 billion, and we're all working together to lobby for that. Those are the grants that you draw down locally to, for each synagogue and institution. And we thank all of our partners for joining together to lobby for this incredibly important program. But we also said, our local law enforcement needs more resources, and the federal government should help with that, because think about all we're asking our local law enforcement people to do, to park outside our synagogues and our schools. And just as a side note, the terrible attack on the Annunciation Church in Minneapolis, you know what happened there, right? It was the first day of school. It was a celebratory mass in the sanctuary of the church, where the school was next door. And the parents and children were all there for the first day of school, and the shooter shot from the outside in. Now, how many places do we have like that, right? Where our synagogues are next to our Jewish day schools, and on the first day of school, we're davening shacharit together, and we're going to say hello. We're going to have a wonderful event. Now today we wouldn't think of having an event like that without the police, the local police department knowing and being parked outside, without security guards inside and outside. But 5 years ago, we might have, right? So that's the change we've overcome, but we need that help, and they need resources, and the FBI has to have more resources. FBI is operating on the same resources they had 10 years ago. It's unacceptable, and that is the kind of thing we need to work on together. So when we talk to them, we're asking them, what are you doing to address these serious threats that are coming from all over the world? There's a domestic terror crisis. They are attacking from all over the world. I hope we're going to talk about social media, because that's also an attack coming from all over the world, and this is an attack coming from all over the world on the Jewish community. We need law enforcement. So for me, it's a priority. That matters. The institutions that affect our direct communities every day matter, and some other organizations don't matter so much, and voices don't matter so much, and those we got to let go by the wayside.
Did you want to add something on that?
No, I think the 6-point plan he talked about, I'm proud of the work that we've done together to advance that. We're not going to stop. Like, we are literally, I know we've got plenty of folks, again, like inside our community to a degree. You don't agree. Like, I'm sorry. Like, at the end of the day, I think debate is healthy, by the way, but we are anchored by shared purpose, anchored by a common destiny. So again, there may be these people who snipe and who complain on the sidelines. Let them write their silly op-eds, if you will. At the end of the day, ADL and JFNA, we are doing the work.
Great. Thank you. So Eric, I want to come back to your question about social media. And when I was listening this morning about this need for coordinated social media, there's so much we can do. And I keep coming back, I think it was Sarah Hurwitz who said that Jews fighting anti-Semitism is like trying to stop a tsunami with a teaspoon. And I've been thinking about that when I think about social media and the billions of people in the world and all these people posting. So what is possible? What does it mean to coordinate messaging on social media? Is that even possible? And what can we accomplish?
Yeah. Look, this is a really, really important question. It's probably, if I had to say what question do I get more than any other question, it's why can't we be on the offense on social media, right? We're so smart, we can develop algorithms, why are we so much on the defense? And really, I'm sitting next to somebody who's far more expert on this question than I am, and I want to hear Jonathan's answer too. But I'll at least give you my, you're entitled to my observations on this subject. First of all, with all due respect, and I thought the panel this morning was amazing, but there's not going to be a single messenger for the Jewish community. There's never been a single messenger for the Jewish community in 4,000 years, and nobody's going to agree to have a single messenger for the Jewish community. What we need is effective messages that gain that gain an audience because they're effective. When something goes viral, it's not because that it came from on top. It's because it came from below, right? It came because it was something that broke through, and so we have to apply all of our creativity and innovation, as Jonathan pointed out earlier, to that question. And I know we are, and many other organizations are working on that too. But I want to say one other thing that maybe Jonathan agrees with or not. I do think that what we've experienced on social media over these last 2 years, to the extent that people say there's a coordinated attack and why aren't we coordinated response, they are right that there's a coordinated attack. This is a global attack on the Jewish people and the state of Israel, funded with billions and billions, if probably trillions of dollars, and fueled by some of the most sophisticated algorithms and social media platforms that have ever been devised. And I am skeptical that a people as small as the Jewish community is going to create an alternative platform to that or break through that concerted attack. But I do believe that public policy must play a role in this. It is why we supported the TikTok divestment bill last year. We were the only Jewish organization that did get involved in that fight. We did it precisely. We didn't think it was going to solve the whole problem, but we did it because we did think it would make a dent on anti-Semitism. And I am hopeful that if Larry Ellison and Oracle really do end up, playing the leading role in the TikTok algorithm and data situation in America, that it could potentially set an example. And I think we have to be willing to turn to our government and say that our community is under attack from around the world, and that we do need government to take public policy solutions. There was a day before World War II when Father Coughlin from Michigan, from Detroit, was broadcasting on this newfangled thing called the radio, and it was in everybody's home, and he was spewing anti-Semitism. And Charles Lindbergh was filling Madison Square Garden with virulent Nazism and anti-Semitism. And we did figure out how to get control of those situations through a combination of government action and civic action. And I think that's what we're going to have to do here to respond to this social media crisis. Jonathan?
So there's a lot to say, and I appreciate how Eric laid it out. A couple things I'll just say right off the top, and then I'm going to dive in. So number one, I didn't hear Sarah's presentation, Sarah Hurwitz.
It was previously when she said this, but yeah.
Her new book, As a Jew, is amazing. She's a wonderful writer and so sage and smart. I don't agree with the analogy at all. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. A teaspoon. Look, we need to recognize the threats are real and we have got to fight it. And we might want to fight it more intelligently, and we'll talk about that. But if you ask me, and I feel the need to say, I think in many ways the best offense against anti-Semitism is something we haven't even talked about here, but it's something that I know you guys care about, and I think all of you care about. The best defense is a good offense. And the best offense to fight the haters is to love thyself. Jewish education, Zionist identity, okay, Torah learning. These are essential elements of a healthy constitution for our community. So I'm going to talk about social media right now, but I don't want to discount how important I think those are. They are crucial. Go high five the guys from Birthright in the other room. Literally, go hug every former Hillel executive or current Hillel executive that you know. And kol hakavod to you for oh, you can't hear me anymore? Lost me there? Can you hear me now? Thank you, Eli. Call a vote for your new Chief Jewish Learning Officer.
Chief
Ladies and gentlemen.
Life.
Sheila Katz will do amazing things in this organization. I just deeply believe in this, and I would be remiss if I didn't put it right out front. Again, we need to know and love ourselves in order to deal with the threats, the exogenous threats. Now, that being said, social media. I didn't agree, or ADL didn't take a position on the TikTok sale, and I'll tell you why. Because we've thought for a long time that Facebook is the front line in fighting hate. And I don't need to tell you, the CEO of Facebook, he knows a little bit about our community, right? Like, if you look up and down Silicon Valley, there are plenty of people from the Jewish community who have either started these companies or run these businesses. And that they went to Jewish, that they had a bar mitzvah, or they have been a mitzvah. That doesn't mean they get it. So I have found that there are plenty of platforms like the Meta products, like Instagram or Facebook, like X, like YouTube, that are deeply problematic, and it doesn't matter that they're owned by Americans. Because the reality is, what Eric said is right. We have enemies, real enemies. Iran being at the top of that list, China, Russia, that have exploited these platforms to sow division inside our communities. I'll tell you a quick story. Again, we've been tracking this stuff for a long time. 2016, we saw a massive surge of anti-Semitism on what was then known as Twitter. And we tracked this, and we pulled down tens of thousands of these incendiary tweets. About half of them, they used to default geotag the tweets, show you where they were written from. About half of those tweets were tagged like Ukraine, Russia, Belarus. And at the time, we thought those were white supremacists in those countries who were writing the nasty tweets. They weren't. It was Russia. It was the Internet Research Agency, which was a Russian, like KGB outfit that was doing it. So today, state and non-state actors continue to exploit social media to attack America and to use anti-Semitism as the wedge. So yes, I think we need to be better. That doesn't, if you will, take TikTok off the hook. The stuff on TikTok is outrageous. They're all bad. None of them are good. So yes, we need to fight them with better memes and better campaigns. I also agree with Eric that we need better policy. And my view on this is pretty simple. If you know broadcast media, like newspapers, or traditional media, newspapers, television, radio, magazines, billboards, all have certain responsibilities. If they publish libel, they're liable for it. If they print or broadcast false information, they're responsible. There's a loophole in the law known as Section 230, which exempts the social media companies. So if it's printed in the New York Times and it's not real, and a lot of stuff is, in theory, A.G. Sulzberger is responsible for that. But if you take that same piece of content, you put it on Facebook, Facebook isn't responsible. We need to, if you will, end Section 230, close the loophole, so the internet companies, the social media businesses, are responsible for what they publish, just like every other form of media in the United States. Close that loophole, it would change the game overnight.
So can I just add on something?
No,
I
of
just think
course.
I agree with that completely. So you should applaud that. But but I do want to just come back to the TikTok issue for a second and the broader point. Jonathan, just confirmed what really was at the front of our minds on this, which is this is an attack coming from outside of this country on this country, right? You mentioned Iran, you mentioned Russia, and if there was a military attack on our country, then we would all know what to do about that, and we would marshal our defenses. And yet this is undermining our country as fully as any military attack would. By the way, the statistics about the percentage of news you get from TikTok certainly drives your view of Jews and drives your view of Israel. 100%, that's proven. It also drives your view of America. It drives your view of the civil society, which is the democracy, which is the root of everything that's allowed us to flourish in this country. And the impetus behind the TikTok, I'm not arguing with Jonathan about it because I understand the broader point that he's making, but the impetus behind it actually came from a committee of Congress that was looking at the influence of China on American democracy and American policy, because they were seeking to undermine America's essential commitment to its own defense. And so this is bigger than anti-Semitism. This is really trying. When we talk, every comment that gets made at this General Assembly about the impact of social media on Israel, on the views of young people on Israel and anti-Semitism, could just be said equally about the impact of their views on America and on democracy and on the freedoms that we enjoy and our ability to defend ourselves against tyrants in the world. So this is a serious attack on this country, and of course, we expect that we are certainly the number one target, no question, and that's why Jonathan says that has to be the priority of ADL's work today. But I do believe that this is that we need a government that is active and aggressive in addressing these issues.
So two other things. So number one, I agree with, again, there's a lot of agreement here. But I want to say, we look at these at TikTok, let's say. Can I tell you something? We also have a problem with traditional media. And specifically, I want to call out Al Jazeera. So I get that some of you sitting in the crowd, again, you're looking at your news on your phone. I'm guessing you're not getting a lot of Al Jazeera on your phones, because the algorithm gives you what you want to see. But young people who are not in the Jewish community, people who are outside, AJ Plus is filling their news feed. I think Al Jazeera is a clear and present danger to the Jewish community, and specifically, and more broadly, to America. So I'm happy to have this recorded for everyone to hear. Like, I think AJ Plus and Al Jazeera are incredibly problematic and corrosive. So let's not think for a minute that it's just the stuff you see on Insta or TikTok. It's just the stuff coming from some rando streamer or whatnot. Al Jazeera, big problem. The second thing I want to say is, again, I don't dispute the big role that TikTok plays in news consumption, especially for younger people. But I got, again, newsflash, increasingly for a much wider span of the phone-consuming set, ChatGPT is ground truth. So we are very focused at ADL on generative AI and the LLMs that power it. Because whether you're looking at Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever your product of choice is, the biases are almost embedded in it and invisible. Because rarely does anybody double click to see the citations. So we have got to be focused as a community, and we certainly are, on casting a big bright light on the things that are feeding the LLMs, like Wikipedia, like, again, Al Jazeera, and other sources like that.
Well, that was thoroughly terrifying, so thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm going to try and flip. I'm going to ask one more question, then we're going to open it up to all the questions people think I should have asked but didn't, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'll try and turn it from that last answer, which I think is so important, and it is so pervasive now in the way all of us are doing our business every day. So you got a lot of people here who are fearful and who are fatigued, right? It's been an exhausting couple of years. So you talked a little bit about this, Jonathan. I talked about it in the beginning. What is it we can do amidst all of this work and this call to action and this constant need for vigilance and addressing these issues, noticing them, calling them out? How are we going to be going about inspiring hope and resilience in our community? Bringing the joy, I think we're trying to strike this balance. What advice do you have to all of us in our local communities who are pressured every day to do this work, focus on this work, to devote countless hours and dollars to this work? How do we strike the balance to create the joy so that people who are 25 years old say, I really want to be Jewish. Being Jewish is great. Not that it's a defensive position. And right now it often feels, I think, to young people that being Jewish is a defensive position. So what advice do you have for us in the room who do this work?
Well, I mean, Jonathan actually already addressed this so beautifully. And of course, we're addressing it here at the General Assembly as one of the key opportunities we have. Unfortunately, the opportunity has in part come because of the scary stuff that we've been talking about. There's no question that one of the reasons why there's a surge in people showing up at Hillels and interested in day schools and camps, et cetera, is because they're not feeling as welcome in the environments that they were in before. Let's be honest about that. But that still creates the opportunity for us to engage. And so, as you're all doing, and we're all going to do this together. We have federations here and we have organizational partners. We're going to invest in the Jewish life, in Jewish engagement, in Jewish education, and making sure that our entire community. And one of the things that we've talked a little bit about, but we should talk more about, is our partnership with Birthright. You mentioned Birthright in the other room, to create a volunteer in Israel program for all ages, right? Not just we've invested a lot, as we should, in college age and increasingly in K-12, but we have all ages that need to connect and reconnect with the Jewish people, with Israel, and show that they can give something back. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to do that. But can I just answer the question a little differently than you asked it? Because I want to come back to this question of civic engagement. We live in a community. We're a small minority in a broader community. Even in New York City, with all the Jews in New York City, we're a minority in a broader community. And we have to be engaged in that broader community around us. Part of what makes us flourish as a Jewish community is we are both about ourselves, as Jonathan said, and we are, and we're involved in the community. So one of the answers to this problem of social media, we may not be able to stop, Kanye West or Bella Hadid or whatever it is from reaching 5 million people, but you can have a personal conversation with someone who received that message to explain why it's not right and build that relationship. And so the individual relationship building that we can engage in beyond our own Jewish community is critical. And I'll just give you one example of something that we are all doing in our communities. Those of you, many federations received a grant from the amazing Tepper Foundation, of course, founded by David Tepper, who's such an amazing businessman and philanthropist. And it was to strengthen the security, especially in summertime, of preschools and summer camps. One of the conditions was that everybody who received some of these funds would work with the church community or the mosque community in their city to help them, to show them how to do the security work that we've developed the expertise to do. And we've built hundreds of relationships across the country around helping churches apply for nonprofit security grants and helping, and helping them build their security plans. And so these are the kinds of things that can help rebuild the civic environment that I think gives joy and pride to our lives as Jews, in addition to learning Jewishly and engaging Jewishly. But we want to be proud Jews in the broader community too. I know you do that, Heidi, in San Diego, and I just want to add that I think this is an opportunity we have to rebuild those relationships and be proud of what we're doing as leaders of our broader communities as well.
100%. Thank you so much, Eric. That's great.
I don't have a lot to add. I think Eric just put it really well. I would just go back to what I said before. Jewish education, Zionist identity, Torah learning. I believe in all of it. I believe in all of it deeply, profoundly. We have to know ourselves and love ourselves in order to be the best version of ourselves. And look, I would say, I often get asked the question, what gives you hope? The October 8th moment is very hard, but it's also very hopeful. I've never seen such a renaissance, such a renewal, such energy around being Jewish. And yeah, it's certainly true that our own data shows us that more Jewish people are hiding their identities in public, changing their names in their Uber app so they don't sound Jewish, or afraid to put a mezuzah on their door. But even though the data tells me that, I have story after story after story after story after story of Jewish young person who is more alive in their identity than ever before, who refuses to cower, who's found a courage they never had before. And that is amazing, and I think that's how we win.
Great. Eric, I have to tell you, this Birthright Volunteer Project, we're doing one of these trips. And we had a ton of response, and the number of 52-year-olds who have called me to say, I do Pilates, I'm in great shape, you can take me to Israel, I swear. So you gotta up the age, that's all I'm saying.
Oh, 100%. It's for
I
all
worked
ages.
out.
It's already done. All ages.
Good,
All
good,
ages.
good.
Already done.
Just, everyone in San Diego who's listening, they can, head to the gym, we'll get you in the fall. All right, we have some time for a couple of questions from the audience, and we have a microphone, so how about we come over here to start, and then I'll just move it around.
Hi, I'm Ethan. I'm here representing Jewish Changemakers, and I had a question for John Greenblatt.
What is Jewish Changemakers?
It's the Young Professional Fellowship to build a young Jewish community that's vibrant and wholesome and explore different spaces within our own environments as well as around the country.
It's all of our board members and leaders and people running the show 10 years from now, right? Every single one of you.
I had a question regarding your opposition to keeping Section 230 and the impetus that might have if that is repealed on individual free speech, and how we as the Jewish community can use what is in Section 230 now to use that to our advantage rather than getting rid of it. And I would love your take on that.
I think, look, Section 230 would simply, again, it would complicate the ability of platforms to post like anti-Jewish or slanderous or libelous content that, again, you can't put anywhere else. So it just means they have to play by the same rules as every other form of media in America. Now, it's certainly true that while Section 230, that loophole still exists, there's lots of ways we can, with user-generated content, tell our own stories. But I think here's the thing, Ethan. We don't lie for a living, right? We have a tendency to tell the truth. And I think what we need to recognize, and Eric kind of laid this out in so many words, our enemies will lie about us and undermine us with everything they've got. And we've just got to make it impossible for the social media companies to carry that poison and pump it into the bloodstream. So that's all that I want. You have nutrition labels on food you buy on the shelf, right? And the food companies get in trouble if their food knowingly poisons their customers. The social media companies, their product, it is poisoning our communities. And it's time they simply played by the rules like everybody else.
Great, thank you. Okay, we take another one. Do we have where do we have microphones out? Somebody have a microphone?
Eli's got the microphone.
Eli's got the microphone.
Eli, you gotta get moving.
Okay.
Can you update us on where the ADL's relationship is now with the FBI after the...
So the question got asked about where's ADL's relationship with the FBI. So the ADL's been working with the FBI literally since the FBI was formed. We work with the FBI at the national level, at the local level, when we detect threats. And again, we monitor hundreds of millions of pieces of intelligence, social media content of all kinds every year. We keep doing that, and where we find actionable intelligence, where we can detect and hopefully disrupt a threat, we share it. We're continuing to do that. We continue to work with agents all over the country. We're continuing to do that. It's certainly true that Director Patel made a comment about ADL, referencing a speech that FBI Director James Comey gave at ADL in 2014. But on a day-to-day basis, we respect the ADL, we continue to find ways, The ADL respects the FBI, and we continue to find ways to work with the FBI wherever we can to detect and deter threats against our community.
Thanks. Over here.
Hi. There's a ton of questions I think I could potentially ask, but I'm going to move away from the microphone because it doesn't like me. Okay. That's okay. Hi. Thank you. Encouragement. Michelle Rojas Tal, apologies for the background noise. The question I actually want to ask is one of access. I agree that I think we have a momentous opportunity here to really be engaging with and re-engaging with the broader Jewish community. But one of the issues that I think we often leave out of these very important gatherings is the cost of access to Jewish life. And that's something I'm very curious in this moment where we have an opportunity to be back at the drawing board. What are we doing to not only engage with and re-engage with, but actively be supporting Jews in our broader community who are not able to access our institutions or organizations?
So that one's probably for me and for you, Heidi, too. You should. Last time I checked, the cost of living in San Diego is pretty high. First of all, Michelle, Jonathan previously complimented the Hillel directors, and Michelle Rojas Tal led for 4 or 5 years all the Israel Fellows on campus at Hillel. So thank you so much, Michelle, for your leadership. But look, it's obviously a very appropriate question and a very serious question. And I do think, just like we have an opportunity now to address the availability of Jewish life and Jewish engagement, we have an opportunity to address the cost at the same time. First of all, when you think about Jewish education, and especially day school education, there's actually more favorable public policies right now than there have been in a long time. Many of you live in states that have vouchers and scholarship tax credit programs, and we now have this new federal education tax credit, which will take effect in the 2026, where every taxpayer can deduct $1,700 from their federal taxes and donate it to a scholarship program for people who are going to private school, to religious school, including the Jewish day school. So we have a number of opportunities ahead of us right now that we need to seize. And frankly, we have the resources in the Jewish community to do this, and we need to mobilize ourselves to address the very important challenge that Michelle's raised.
And on our study that we did in San Diego, and we have 100,000 Jews in San Diego, meaning 25,000 of them engaged, and we asked them why they're not engaged, and cost was down on the list. So there's a lot of work we need to do to create access, which is about creating different doors, different pathways, and different experiences within the Jewish community that speak to everybody. So there's many, many things we can be doing there.
And look, there's also free stuff you can do.
Yeah.
Like I think about the Simchas Torah Challenge that some people may be familiar with.
Sponsored here.
Right? Yeah. Dan Loeb's foundation did that. Just trying to get everybody to read the Parsha every week. Like, doesn't cost anything. So there are. I'd love to see a birthright Jewish education, where we figure out a way to get every Jewish parent who wants to send their kid to Jewish day school, or maybe we have the Foundation for Jewish Camp. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some amazing things already there, and we always continue to do a better job. But there's free stuff too. It doesn't cost anything to light candles on Shabbat.
All right, we have I don't know where our microphones are now. Go ahead. Okay.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about K-12 and what your thoughts are about what we can do about school boards and teachers' unions, and where this teacher union problem is coming from, and whether or not there's going to be an effort to get more people who are good to run for school boards.
Yeah, it's a great question, and Jennifer, you is a great political activist in her own right, knows the answer, but I'll say it out loud. We have, unfortunately, a level of government we've never had to pay that close attention to. We now have to pay close attention to. We've always paid attention to members of Congress, and we've had good relationships with our local members of Congress. Most of us have had relationships with our governor. States with larger Jewish populations have focused on state legislatures. But we've spent very little time on city councils, and even less time on school boards, and we're simply going to have to do it now. And that's why what you're hearing, especially those of you representing federations, what you're hearing from us at the Jewish Federations of North America is that just as the last 4 or 5 years, our priority was helping you build the physical security infrastructure, our priority today is to help build the civic engagement infrastructure, because we just simply have to be in more venues than we've been before. So that's number one. Number two, we actually have a number of really creative efforts around the country. I'm looking at Lonnie Nassiter from Chicago, who's sitting in front, unfortunately, so he has to look at us and smile. Having created C4 structures to be more Those of you who don't know, C4, C3 you can't be political with, and we're all C3s in our structure, but C4s have the ability to be issue advocates and be more forthright about criticizing the policies of the community. So a number of communities, Jennifer, have started creating C4s, and we actually have about to form David Golder, who's from Chicago, who's the secretary of our board, is helping us form a C4, just so we can coordinate the C4s together legally and meet. So I think we're having to be innovative, as Jonathan said, in creating it. Now, you asked one other question, which I want to answer. I know I've been on a rant about this teachers union thing, but my friends, it's a serious, serious challenge. When we all saw what was happening on campuses. And let's face it, 18 to 22-year-olds are at least, they at least tell us, they're able to fight back. They've got, we're talking about, 7th and 8th graders. They don't even know what's coming at them is anti-Semitic and is prejudicial. And I do believe that this is one of those cases that where you have an organization that with a national entity that is easy for people who have an agenda to gain control over, and they have undue influence across the country, which we normally don't pay attention to, normally don't see, because your local teachers union contributes to the school levy campaign, the bake sale for the band concert, so that the marching band can go to the Rose Bowl, whatever it is, right? That's how you knew it. But now we have to understand that they're actually playing a different role in our communities. And our job, all of our job, I mean all of ours, not just JFNA and ADL, I mean all of our jobs is to shine light on that, and then to show up at your local school boards and say, this is unacceptable, this is coming in, school boards have to be aware of it, they have to learn about it, they have to know about it, and they've got to put a stop to it, and we can stop it. This is something we absolutely can take control over, but it's going to require a whole level of initiative that we've never had to do before.
So I'll just build upon what Eric said. So many of you know that the NEA came after the ADL. They announced an effort at their national convention in Chicago, thank you, Lonnie, to try to boycott the ADL, all right, which is so freaking ridiculous. They wanted to drop the relationship with ADL. We don't have a relationship with the NEA, for God's sakes. But one of the things that ADL does, we defend the community, right? We protect on the ground. We do a lot of advocacy and we educate. ADL is one of the largest providers of anti-hate content in schools in the United States. We reach 4.5 million school children every year. But a group of activists in the union wanted to stop that. Not because of the quality of our programs, not because of the efficacy of them, but just because we're Jewish. And because we're Zionist. Let's put it right on the table, because we're Zionist. And I am a ferocious and unapologetic Zionist, so the whole world can hear me, okay? Now I say that because our Zionism has nothing to do with fighting hate in the classroom. And the idea that these union activists would try to do this was despicable. Now thankfully, the executive committee of the union canceled it, pulled it back. We met with them, they pulled it back because they knew it was wrong. But we have a fight on the ground, as Eric is saying, all over the country, where activists are trying to use the union to twist things around. So we have to fight. We have to recognize that we might not have asked for this fight, but we can't desist from it. So I would say I would love to see every federation in America to build upon something that Eric was saying. I'd love 146 federations, 146? 141 federations. Each have a program training your members to run for school boards. Training your members to get involved. Because that is what the other side is doing. I missed the DSA panel, but you better believe as the day is long, they're training their people to show up and run. So we should train ours to run for school board, to run for town assembly or city council. Run. Get involved. That's how we win. Last thing. Literally, we created at ADL over a year ago the Birnbaum Center for Combating Antisemitism in Education. We are on the ground fighting to get ethnic studies out of classrooms. We're fighting it at the state level all over America. And if you want to get involved in that fight for education advocacy, find me. because you had me at hello. This is a fight we can't afford to lose.
Can I
Thank
add one
you.
other thing quickly, Heidi?
Yes.
I don't.
And then we'll wrap up.
Then
So
we'll wrap
yeah,
up.
go ahead.
So the reason why I'm so focused and we're so focused on civic engagement and strengthening our skills at that, or maybe rebuilding some skills, is every one of you is involved, whether you know it or not, in some professional association, right? The lawyers here are involved in bar associations. The doctors here, probably belong to medical associations. The social workers here belong to social workers. The teachers here belong to teachers unions, whether you wish you did or not. Everyone is somewhere in our civic society, and we have to step up in those venues. We have to speak up. We have to be active in those, because if those places are, the hate fills the vacuum if we're not engaged in those things. And I know it's hard, right? You've got children at home, and we have so much to take care of our parents. We have so much we want to do. I don't have time to go to that association meeting or that union meeting that I belong to, or that the local chapter of the NASW or whatever it was. And that's where this stuff is happening, folks. That's where it's not. One of the reasons why the pressure you pointed out, Heidi, earlier, that we work so well together at national level, and we have to put the pressure. Look, the pressure that came to the NEA Executive Committee, it was in part because ADL did a great job, and in part because it was all over the news, right? It was which was partly ADL's work. Yeah. It was embarrassing to them, right? They didn't want it. They didn't want that negative publicity, so they pulled it back. But that doesn't stop what's actually happening, in your local community. Those activists are still there unless we are equally meeting them in those venues with activism. So every one of us has a civic responsibility. And by the way, not just the people who are here at the General Assembly, but your entire Jewish community. So our job as the leaders of our community is to figure out how to activate that civic engagement that we have the capability and the skills to do. And when we do that, I actually, back to the social media question for a second, I actually believe that's the most effective response. Even more so, I believe in public policy, as I argued earlier, but the most effective response is not to be able to stop something from being on somebody's phone, but to have somebody saying to them why that's wrong. And that can't be allowed in the high school. It can't be allowed in the, in the local city council. It cannot be. We're not going to let the mayor appoint somebody to a position who likes that stuff and who spreads that stuff. Right? These are the things we can do at a civic level, and that is the charge of our coming years.
All right, we have 2 minutes. I'm going to give you each, basically 30 seconds. Good luck on a final reflection. I mean, what I'm taking away, this concept of civic engagement, Eric, is writ large. It's at every level, in every relationship you have, all the way from, responding to what people are seeing on TikTok to running for the highest offices in the state, getting involved in every way that we can, leaning in while being proudly Jewish, proudly Zionist, and embracing every aspect of that. So, we got another year to the next GA. What is the one point you want the people in this room to take away? Something really important that we should be laser focused on between now and the next time we come together.
The same way that we, over the last few years, assessed the level of our physical security, and we made the changes we need to make, and we made the investments that we needed to make, do the same assessment of the civic engagement capacity of the leadership of the Federation and all the other organizations together, our partner organizations in the communities, and let's address that level of civic engagement. We can do this. We have the skills, the capability, but we've got to pay attention to it, and we've got to invest the resources in it.
Thank you. Jonathan.
Look, ADL exists to protect the Jewish people. We will defend, we will advocate, and we will educate in defense of our community. I promise you, with everything I got, that we have your back. And we always will. It's why we exist. I don't care what the haters say. That's why we're here, and we will never relent. We will never surrender. We will never stop. That being said, all of you at the individual level, get involved. By the way, you're all here, so we're kind of preaching to the choir, right? But like next year, come back to GA and bring a friend. Next year, like your homework assignment is to find someone to bring, someone who's not involved. So like recruit, volunteer, donate, advocate, educate, and ultimately you got to run. Because you know what? To win this, we got to be in it to win it. You're not going to win this fight through remote control. You're not going to win this fight through Zoom. You got to be on the front lines. Ethan, I'm glad you're a change maker. I can't wait to hear what office you're going to run for, because that's what we need.
Thank you, and thank you. Thanks so much to both of you, and I would add, while you're doing all of that hard work, fill it up and fill up your cup with something joyfully and unapologetically Jewish that fills your soul. Just
Amen.
Keep that going. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Eric. Thanks to all of you. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you.